Discover the amazing life-changing transformation hidden after being knocked out for 30 days. In the small town of Maplewood, Jake was more than just the local mechanic, he was the heartbeat of the community. With his grease-stained hands and a reassuring smile, he mended cars and spirits alike. Each day, his garage welcomed the laughter of neighbors, the clinks of tools, and the smells of motor oil blending with fresh coffee. But one fateful afternoon, the world shifted. An accident in his workshop knocked him out cold, sending him into a coma that would last 30 agonizing days. News of Jake's condition spread like wildfire. Hard-working folk stopped by, clutching steaming casseroles, their faces drawn with worry and hope. The garage became a shrine of sorts, strewn with prayer candles and heartfelt notes. "Get well soon, Jake." Read one scrawled in a child's handwriting. The townsfolk gathered for candlelight vigils, linking arms in solidarity, but beneath the surface, the air thickened with unspoken tensions, especially with the arrival of Dan, Jake's estranged brother. Dan long felt overshadowed by Jake's quiet success, and his return sparked whispered conversations. "Why didn't he come back sooner?" murmured one neighbor. Dan's resentment seeped through every interaction, cracking the surface of community support. Meanwhile, Jake lay unconscious, oblivious to the knot of emotions twisting within his family and friends. As they shared meals and stories meant to uplift, questions lingered. Was hard work enough to guarantee success? Why did some struggle while others thrived? The gentle smiles began to fade as doubts took root, giving rise to discontent. Finally, after 30 long days, Jake awoke to a world pulled taut with tension. Blinking against the harsh fluorescent lights, he felt both gratitude and ache. The physical therapy that awaited was daunting, but the emotional healing loomed larger. As friends celebrated his return, whispers swirled amongst them. Would they welcome Dan or push him away again? Then came the moment that would shape everything. One evening, as the sun dipped low in the sky, Jake finally faced Dan, a confrontation 30 years in the making. Each word was like a hammer, breaking past the walls they'd built around their hearts. They stood there, two brothers, silhouetted against the fading light, their silence heavy with the burden of the past. "Why didn't you ever believe in me?" Dan's voice broke, loaded with years of bottled neglect. Jake's chest tightened, but he pressed on. "I can't be blamed for your choices, Dan." The world around them faded, their differences howling like wind through the streets of Maplewood. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. As the conversation intensified, they navigated through layers of misunderstanding and unrequited expectations. The town's resolve echoed the brothers' pain. Was there a way to reconcile their fractured bond while the weight of whispered judgments loomed? In that charged atmosphere, something shifted. Hope flickered like a candle's flame, a sign that perhaps healing was possible. Would this confrontation forge a new understanding between them? Would they finally find common ground to redefine their lives, together, in the shadows of their past? A deeper transformation awaited, one that would force the entire town to reconsider what success, family, and forgiveness truly meant. Each brother's journey had just begun, and the pulse of hope kept ticking, urging them forward. The tension hung heavy in the air as Jake and Dan stood face to face, their eyes brimming with memories both burdensome and cherished. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, casting a warm glow that felt at odds with their unresolved past. For a quiet moment, neither brother spoke, the silence screamed louder than any words could. Jake could feel his heart pounding in his chest, the weight of his brother's pain crashing into him like waves against a shoreline. He took a deep breath. "I never meant to hurt you, Dan. Life, it just pulled us apart." Dan shook his head, frustration etched on his face. You think it's that simple? You've always been there, the successful brother. I was always trying to catch up. I couldn't stand watching you thrive while I struggled. The truth of those words pierced Jake. They were two sides of the same coin, both longing for connection yet trapped by their individual demons. What if we stopped competing? Jake offered hesitantly. What if we figured this out together? Dan's brows furrowed in thought, the flicker of hope momentarily overshadowed by his doubts. Together? After all these years of resentment? His voice trembled, revealing a mixture of anger and a longing for reconciliation. Yes, together, Jake replied, his voice steady. Maybe it's not too late for us, maybe not for the town either. There's been so much rebuilding to do since I woke up. I can't do it alone. As the words left his lips, they both felt a shift in the air. It was a small start, but it was a start nonetheless. The brothers shared a breath, the energy between them wrapped in an unexpectedly warm embrace of understanding. Behind them, the townspeople began to trickle into view, having noticed the emotional standoff. They gathered quietly, watching the brothers, their whispers turning to murmurs of encouragement. Look, they're talking, someone whispered, and hope stirred among the crowd. Jake felt a rush of gratitude for the community's support. We owe it to them, to ourselves, he said, glancing at the faces of those who had stood vigil for him throughout his coma. Each one held a piece of their own stories and achings. If we heal, they heal. Can we try? Dan's eyes softened, the walls around his heart cracking ever so slightly. You really mean it, don't you? I do, Jake replied, his sincerity shining through. Let us rebuild not just our relationship, but our community too. As the sun set, casting golden light across Maplewood, a flickering flame of transformation ignited. The townsfolk began to applaud, hope rising within the crowd like the tide. Somehow, they understood this wasn't just about the two brothers, this was about all of them. But even as they stood ready to take the first steps forward, doubts lingered in the back of Jake's mind. Could he truly forgive Dan for the years lost? And could Dan let go of the resentment that had festered within him for so long? The brothers smiled tentatively at each other, both knowing the journey would be fraught with challenges. Yet for the first time, they took a step forward together. As they turned towards the welcome of the townsfolk, the first whispers of new beginnings began to come through. Was this the turning point for both families and for Maplewood itself, or were deeper wounds yet to surface? The path ahead was uncharted and the heart of Maplewood pulsed with the promise of change. The clapping grew louder, building around the brothers like a gentle wave. Jake could see the glimmer of hope in the crowd's faces. There was something electrifying in the air, the promise of change, of healing, yet shadows of uncertainty still lingered in the depths of his heart. Feeling emboldened, Jake turned once more to Dan, trying to match his brother's eyes directly. So, how do we start? Dan rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous gesture that revealed more than a hint of vulnerability. Maybe we could hold a town meeting. Share everything we've been through. Everyone deserves to hear our story. Jake nodded, struck by the simplicity and power of the idea. It could serve two purposes: mending their relationship and reaching out to the community. We owe them that. The townspeople sensed a shift too. Whispers turned to words, each tone reverberating with encouragement. Yes. A meeting. Someone shouted, and the energy swelled. Here was a chance to come together, not just as brothers, but as a community united by shared experiences of loss, pain, and perhaps redemption. As the final rays of sun dipped below the horizon, casting the gathering in a twilight glow, Jake felt an unprecedented sense of belonging. For the first time in ages, the weight of loneliness didn't press upon him like a heavy blanket threatening to suffocate. Instead, it was replaced by an invigorating breeze of support. Okay, how about we meet at the old community hall? It used to be the heart of Maplewood. It feels fitting, Dan suggested. Right. Jake exclaimed, excitement bubbling up. That place has been empty too long. Let us fill it with hope instead of darkness. Dan cracked a thin smile, and it felt monumental. I never thought I'd see us planning something like this. Jake felt a wave of warmth at that acknowledgement. They shared a glance, a brief pause in which they were just two brothers again, standing on the edge of something new. Maybe they could rewrite the narrative of their lives together. However, as the applause subsided and anticipation grew, shadows danced at the edges of their thoughts. What old wounds might surface from the past? What truths would they have to confront? A flicker of fear crept into Jake's mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that not everyone in town would be open to change, especially those who had chosen sides during the brothers' estrangement. The ties of anger and hurt might cling tightly, unwilling to let go without a fight. Just then, a woman in the crowd spoke up, her voice steady yet cautious. But what about the old divisions? What if this meeting only stirs up more resentment? Her question hung in the air, charged with anxiety. Jake exchanged a look with Dan, the moment hanging like a cliffhanger, reminding them both that the journey ahead was not just about healing but confronting discomfort. Maybe we need to face that fear head-on, Dan replied, his tone deeper now, resonating with determination. Together, we can tackle whatever comes. We owe it to the town. We owe it to ourselves. The crowd began murmuring softly, journeying through their own fears. Hope battled with doubt. Jake could feel the collective breath of uncertainty. Could they truly overcome the strains of their history? As the evening sky darkened, he felt time slipping away, like sand through his fingers. How an audience would react was out of his control, but one thing was clear: change was brewing, and it would call for courage from all sides. As the gathering began to disperse, his heart raced. Just how far would they have to go to mend the wounds of the past? Would facing the truth draw them closer, or pull them further apart? The answers loomed ahead, shrouded in uncertainty, waiting to unveil their stories. The following morning, the sun rose softly over Maplewood, casting a golden hue that seemed to promise renewal. Jake stirred awake with a pounding heart, excitement mingling with trepidation. He glanced at the clock. Time was slipping through his fingers faster than he would have liked. Today felt monumental, like standing at the precipice of something he had long yearned for. After a quick breakfast, he joined Dan outside. The crisp autumn air was sharp and invigorating. They walked toward the old community hall, the building's weathered facade reflecting their own scars. Just think, this place in US, it's been too quiet for too long, Jake said, his voice almost breaking as memories surged. Dan nodded, his face a mix of determination and concern. Yeah, I remember the laughter, the events, even the fights. It felt alive. Exactly. It's time to breathe life back into it, Jake replied, trying to encourage his brother. Still, Dan's silence was telling. The wounds of the past were not easily forgotten, and Jake could see the flicker of uncertainty in his brother's gaze. As they stepped inside, the dusty air felt heavy. Jake imagined what it would be like to fill the room with voices, sharing stories, healing old hurts. They set to work, arranging chairs and cleaning the space. Jake could feel the excitement crackling just beneath the surface, but Dan's demeanor was shadowed, a reminder of the hurdles ahead. Later that afternoon, the community began to gather. Faces that Jake hadn't seen in years appeared, bringing their stories and histories. Some smiled warmly, lingering in conversations, while others wore masks of uncertainty, their brows furrowed. Jake's heart raced, balancing between hope and dread. As the last few townsfolk trickled in, a sudden stillness enveloped the hall. Eyebrows raised, whispers turned to silence. Jake looked over at Dan, who stood wide-eyed, clearly feeling the tension. "We can do this," Jake whispered, though he wasn't entirely sure himself. Then, an elderly woman took her seat at the front, her presence commanding respect. "We all remember the brothers. How things fell apart." Her words stirred discomfort, and Jake's stomach dropped. Dan took a deep breath, his fingers tapping against the lectern. We know it's painful. But we want to share where we've been. How we've struggled, and how we want to move forward. The murmurs began again, some supportive, others skeptical. It was a volatile mix that made the air feel thick with judgment. Jake caught sight of an old friend, Brad, wearing a scowl. The reminder of past divides cut through Jake like a knife. Look, we don't expect anyone to just forgive and forget. We know we've made mistakes, Jake pressed on, voice rising slightly. But this meeting isn't just about us. It's about coming together. We all carry our burdens. We don't have to bear them alone. He watched the crowd react, their expressions shifting between anger, pain, and a flicker of something unnameable, perhaps hope. Dan's eyes met his. They were standing on the edge together, ready to leap into the unknown. Suddenly, an unexpected figure emerged from the crowd. Sarah, the woman whose presence had once ignited a flame in both their lives. Her arrival stirred old memories, raw emotions bubbling to the surface. "Jake," she called out, voice firm, "I want to understand. But I need you to be real with us." Jake felt the weight of her words heavy in the air. What truths would spill from his lips? What scars would he have to unveil before them all? Could this reconciliation be the bridge to healing he longed for? With his heart pounding hard, he understood that the moment had come. The honesty he so desperately sought was about to unfold in a room filled with faces from his past. The room was dim, but Jake could see it clearly. This was his chance. But as he opened his mouth to speak, all eyes trained on him. A voice from the back boomed, cutting through the tension like a knife. "And what if you only open old wounds again?" Jake's breath hitched. All the hope he felt began to waver. Would they spiral deeper into their divisions instead of climbing together towards a collective healing? Anxiety throbbed in his chest, but he met Dan's gaze, seeking strength. Would they stand firm, or let this unravel? The stakes had never felt higher. Jake's heart raced as he faced the crowd. A mix of anger and anticipation hung like a cloud above them. He could see their expectations shifting, wavering between curiosity and suspicion. "Who is it going to hurt?" he finally managed to utter, feeling the tension in his shoulders ease slightly as he pushed his thoughts into words. "Are we really here to point fingers, or are we ready to own up to our own mistakes?" The voice that challenged him rolled around again, and Jake could feel the eyes of the crowd harden. "You think it's all so easy, don't you? Just to move on." The woman's tone held a sharp edge that cut deep. She was echoing fears he had felt himself. "Of course not," Dan interjected, his voice steadier now. "But the first step is stopping this cycle. We're trying to find a way back, not just for us, but for everyone here." Jake shared a fleeting glance with Dan, and in that moment, all the unease from the past started to fade. He felt a wave of determination rushing over him. He was tired of running, tired of pretending that things didn't hurt. "I'm asking you to listen," Jake continued, turning back toward the crowd. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about each of you, to each of us. We've been through hell together, but that doesn't mean we can't rise from it. I want to share what I've learned, the hard way, if you'll let me." Some faces softened, and he caught a glimpse of nods. Others, however, continued to cast resentful glances, their discomfort palpable. But Jake refused to back down. This was a moment he had dreamt about, to finally confront the darkness that had shadowed them all. Jake took a step forward, breathing deep. "I know I've messed up. I thought I could handle my problems alone. I ran away instead of facing what I had done." The words spilled from him in a raw honesty he hadn't expected. A silence swept through the room. "Each of you has your own wounds," he pressed on, looking from face to face. "I see it. I feel it. But we can heal together. Isn't that worth the risk?" In the back, Brad crossed his arms, frustration written on his face. "And if it all just blows up in our faces? Are you ready to deal with that?" "Then we deal with it," Jake replied, heart pounding. Better together than apart. It's time to take off the masks and show who we really are, no more hiding. A murmur rippled through the crowd, some were nodding, some were whispering. The energy shifted, the air charged with something new, hope, maybe? Still, tension crackled like static electricity. Sarah stepped closer, her brow furrowed but her eyes alive. What if we open those wounds and can't close them again? Jake swallowed hard, the weight of her question pressed heavy against his chest. But as he opened his mouth to respond, Dan found his voice again. Then we learn to live with them. We acknowledge our scars. We start the conversation. In that moment, a soft tension coiled around the room, a sense of camaraderie building. Faces turned from skepticism to contemplation. Did they really have the strength to dive into the past? Jake felt something shift within him, a mixture of fear and exhilaration. For so long, doubt had held him captive. But now, standing there, surrounded by the ghosts of their yesterdays, he craved awareness, honesty, and healing that he could sense the hesitation hovering in the air. Jake knew that this was only the beginning of a long, difficult discussion. They all needed to confront their pasts, but he believed it could lead them to brighter days. But just as hope started to blossom in the hearts of the crowd, a firm voice broke through the optimism. You think we'll just forgive you? Remember what you took from us? Jake's blood ran cold. It was the voice of someone hurt, and he knew this was just the tip of the iceberg. Would they ever truly reach understanding? Would the wounds truly begin to heal? With his heart racing, uncertainty flooded him again. What if this all unraveled before their eyes? He looked at Dan, seeking reassurance. Are we really ready for this? Jake whispered, feeling the gravity of their choice. Dan nodded. A fierce determination in his gaze. It's time to face it all. We can't run any longer. Jake drew in a breath, eyes scanning the crowd as fear clashed with hope, the moment charged with possibility. Would they move forward, or retreat deeper into the darkness? Jake's pulse quickened as he stood amidst the crowd, the weight of every gaze piercing him like arrows. He felt the shift around him, the raw tension mixed with a magnetic pull toward honesty. It was as if they were all teetering on the edge of something profound, a reckoning or a revolution, he couldn't tell. Forgive? The voice rang out again, stronger this time. It belonged to a man Jake recognized from the neighborhood, a face marked by years of struggle. You think any of us have forgotten? The way things fell apart? His voice faltered, but rage simmered behind his eyes. You don't just get to waltz in here and ask for empathy. Jake blinked, the cold truth of the man's words chilling him. This was the moment they had to face, the raw nerve that could either spark healing or ignite chaos. He opened his mouth, grappling for the right words. I know what I took from all of you. I didn't just run from myself, I ran from the people I cared about. And I know asking for forgiveness is a lot, but I'm here because I believe we can rebuild. Rebuild? The word seemed to echo through the room. An air of disbelief hung over them, followed by thin threads of skepticism. You say that like it's easy, Sarah interjected, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. But nothing about this is easy. You think you can come back and fix what's broken? Jake inhaled deeply, grounding himself. I don't know if I can fix it, but I have to try. And I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. I'm asking you to join me to fight for something better together. We owe it to ourselves to try. Aren't you tired of this anger? Of this hurt? The room fell silent, and Jake could feel the collective weight of those unspoken fears. Hope danced on the edges of their expressions, yet shadows still loomed large. A small voice from the back spoke up, barely audible but potent. What if you fail again? What if we're left with even bigger wounds? Jake turned to confront that fear head-on. We will fail, and that's okay. We have to be willing to stumble to learn. If we keep running away from what hurts us, we're never truly free. It's time to take a risk. Together, we can forge a path through the mess. Isn't that worth risking a little vulnerability? He saw a few heads nodding cautiously, while others still bristled in resistance. Dan stepped up beside him, an anchor in this storm. Each of us carries scars. But scars tell a story. They remind us that we survived something painful, yet here we stand today. That means we have the courage to face our past. Jake noticed a member of the crowd clenching their fists, visibly shaking with emotions: fear, anger, and perhaps justification. You don't get it. You weren't there when we lost everything. You just went off the grid while we were left to pick up the pieces. Who gave you the right to tell us how to heal? The accusation hung in the air like a heavy fog, and Jake felt the heat of panicked uncertainty rise in his chest. You're right, he admitted, voice cracking but unwavering. I didn't share your burdens. I didn't live through what you did. But I want to understand. I want to make things right. Can you help me? For a moment, time felt suspended as tension thickened like an invisible wall. Hope collided with mistrust, and Jake felt as if he was standing at a precipice. This was at a point of no return. Would they lean into healing or retreat into their corners of hurt and anger? Then, a soft but persistent whisper broke the silence. Maybe we could start by sharing our stories. Just one. One story at a time. It was a woman Jake hadn't noticed before, her voice cautious but laced with a willingness to try. Encouragement began to ripple through the group. He could feel the tide slowly shifting from resistance toward something lighter, almost hopeful. But as they took a tentative step into this new territory, Jake's focus snapped back to the original question that had unsettled him: what lay beneath all their wounds? What did they dare to dig up next? With the weight of responsibility heavy upon him, Jake realized he would need to brace himself for the revelations that were sure to follow and for the truth that might break them all over again. Would they find redemption in their shared stories or open fresh scars that they couldn't bear? The air shifted as Jake looked out at the small group, their faces still a blend of skepticism and hope. It felt both fragile and powerful, like a candle flickering against a storm. He sensed they were ready to crack open old wounds, but that didn't mean they were ready to trust. Who will go first? The woman asked, her eyes scanning the crowd as if searching for a spark. A younger man, barely out of his teens, took a deep breath. Against the backdrop of heavy hearts, he looked small but resolute. I'll start, he said, voice steady. My name is Ben. Jake felt a surge of anticipation mixed with dread. Ben shifted his weight, his gaze dropping to the floor. My sister, she was everything to me. When everything went down, when the community fell apart, she was hurt in a way I couldn't prepare for. I didn't know how to help her. I just felt useless. I kept shutting down, thinking it was better to stay away than mess things up more. Tears glimmered in his eyes. The night we lost her, all I remember is standing there, frozen, watching her struggle while I did nothing. A soft murmur rippled through the crowd. Jake felt the truth of Ben's pain, striking him like a sharp knife. This wasn't just about a lost sister, it was about a moment lost to fear and inaction. Others were starting to lean in, drawn by the gravity of his confession. I still see her face every day, Ben continued, voice breaking. I can't shake the guilt. I wish I had been brave enough to fight for her. Now I don't know how to live with that shame. Silence washed over them, heavy with empathy. Jake felt the weight of every shared sorrow. This is what they were up against, a tapestry of hurt woven with threads of regret and guilt. Then Sarah stepped forward, propelled by Ben's bravery. Her hand trembled slightly, but she straightened, holding her ground. It's not just you, Ben. We all buried our heads in the sand while everything crumbled. I lost my job, my home. But the thing that hurt the most? I lost my sense of belonging. I was so scared of facing it, I numbed myself. And then the anger grew. The anger pushed everyone away. Jake could see her fight against the tears, a fierce spirit beneath the surface, trembling but refusing to break completely. He could only imagine how many times she'd replayed that moment in her mind, the choices that led to the pain. Then all of this happened, she continued, gesturing around the room. I thought I could just keep moving, keep pretending. But look where pretending got us, a room filled with broken hearts. More voices started to rise, one after another. Each story spilled forth like a healing balm, each shared wound slightly soothing the others. Jake felt the chasm of isolation slowly closing as they bared their souls. Maybe sharing our stories won't erase our pasts, Ben said softly, looking around the gathering. But maybe, just maybe, it can help us carry them. A murmur of agreement swept the crowd. Vulnerability enveloped them, creating an unexpected bond, but amidst the pouring of hearts, Jake felt a gnawing concern. He had opened a well of emotions that could easily drown them, and the thought of what lay ahead sent a chill down his spine. What horrors would resurface? What unspoken truths were still hidden in the shadows? As the stories flowed, he steeled himself for his own moment. When would he share? Would they find empathy for his past or recoil in judgment? He looked at the faces around him, so different, yet now intertwined by shared pain. The stories were forging connections, but what would they do when the past collided head-on with the present? Could empathy truly change the course of their lives? Would these brave conversations be enough to turn wounds into scars, or would they break apart yet again? With uncertainty crackling in the air, he felt his heart race, bracing for what he knew would come next. How deep was the hurt buried? And what dark revelations awaited them all in this collective sharing of scars? Jake's heart thudded in his chest as he watched each story unfold. It was a fragile thing, this moment they held. He could see it in their eyes, the flicker of vulnerability, the fear of being judged, and the desperate need to be heard. As silence settled after Ben and Sarah's confessions, he knew it was his turn. But the weight of unshared memories pressed down, chaining him in place. What about you, Jake? The woman's voice broke through the haze, a gentle push, urging him forward. He cleared his throat, feeling the heat of their gazes on him. What could he possibly say? He felt like a coward hiding behind the pain of others. Everyone else had stepped into the light, he stood cloaked in shadows, wrestling with his own demons. He began, the word escaping as a whisper. I never thought I'd be here, sharing anything. He forced himself to meet their eyes. I lost my father last year. It was sudden. One day he was there, and the next, he was gone. A murmur of understanding flickered through the room, and the weight of his words hung heavily. I always thought he'd be there, you know. I took that for granted. I was too busy with my life, my responsibilities, and then it felt like the ground just dropped away. He could feel the lump in his throat, the familiar sting of tears pooling in his eyes. I thought I had time. Time to say what was left unsaid, the I love us and the I'm proud of us. But without him, I've been lost. Just wandering through the days. I've buried myself in work, trying to forget, but all I do is replay our last moments. A quiet understanding flowed from Ben and Sarah, their faces reflecting his pain, urging him on. And then I started to feel angry. Angry at him for leaving, angry at myself for not being there enough. It spiraled. He paused, his breath catching as he thought of his dad's smile, the way it could light up a room. I know I shouldn't have been angry. But it's there, clawing at me like a beast. I don't want to hold on to that anger, but I don't know how to let it go. Jake felt the all-too-familiar fear of sharing, the fear of revealing too much, but the shared stories had wrapped around him like a blanket. He could see that he wasn't the only one trapped in pain. He continued, letting the truth spill out. I've shut out so many people. Friends stopped reaching out because I pulled away. I didn't know how to be around anyone who didn't get it. A quiet acceptance hung in the air. Jake felt a shift, the spark of connection igniting. They were each navigating their own storm, yet together, they could find a way. Maybe this is the time to let the anchors go. To start living again, he said, his voice steadying. Maybe it's time to stop hiding and let the anger turn into something else. Something stronger. Jake paused, glancing around. The faces around him echoed with unspoken agreement. But still, a fear clung to him. Was he ready to break free from the chaos inside? What if facing this pain doesn't lead to healing? He whispered, the question hanging heavy in the air. Would they stand together in the face of that fear, or would the walls built from their traumas crack them apart again? As he searched their faces, the flicker of hope danced in their eyes, entwined with uncertainty. They were standing on the precipice of transformation, yet Jake felt the ground shifting beneath him. What lay ahead? With hearts open and burdens shared, they were closer than ever to turning their wounds into something powerful. But could they take that final step together? The room felt charged, like the air before a storm. Jake's heart raced as he took in the faces around him. They were a mix of uncertainty and support, pulsing with a desperate hope to believe that healing was possible. With each heavy breath he took, he felt the moment stretch out, ready for somebody to break the silence. Ben was the first to speak. "You're not alone, Jake. We've all been there. Maybe not in the same situation, but we've each got our battles." His voice was firm, a statement of solidarity. "It's just a matter of how we choose to face them." Sarah nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. "I thought I could handle it on my own. I kept telling myself I didn't need anyone. But reaching out took so much weight off my shoulders. Maybe that's how we can begin to rebuild." Her words hung, luminous with promise. Jake swallowed hard, their words resonating deep inside him, igniting something he thought was long snuffed out. "But what if we fall apart in the process?" he asked, vulnerability seeping through. "What if exposing our pain just makes it worse?" "I think you'd be surprised," Sarah replied, her voice warm yet cautious. "Sometimes sharing your hurt can lead to surprising strength. Sometimes, when we feel we're at our lowest, we find a way to rise together." Jake felt a shift within him, something stirring. He wanted to believe, oh how he wanted to. He thought of his father and the unfinished conversations, of all the times he had wished for more time. The ache of regret wrapped around him, but could he really shake loose from it? Could he reach for the strength Sarah spoke of? "Let us try, Jake," Ben encouraged, his hand resting lightly on Jake's shoulder. "What if we promise to take it one step at a time? No pressure. Just honesty." Jake took a deep breath, weighing their offers like stones in his hand. The uncertainty was daunting, yet the possibility of shedding the anger and fear began to glimmer like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Okay. I'm willing to share to try," he said slowly. The words felt heavy, yet freeing all at once. Each of them began to nod, and for a moment, they found themselves bound by a shared promise. They were here to navigate through the unknown together, a group of broken pieces seeking to become whole again. "Maybe we can start by sharing what scares us the most," Sarah suggested, her eyes brightening with the idea. "What has been the hardest part for each of us? That way, we can support one another." Jake felt a ripple of fear and excitement wash over him. Each of them would lay themselves bare before one another, but it felt right. Still, as he sat there, he couldn't help but wonder if this night would truly be the catalyst for healing or another step into darkness. With the questions looming, Jake realized he would have to confront not just his past, but the very core of who he had become since his father's death. "Okay," he said, feeling the courage swell in his chest. "I'll share my fear." He looked at Ben and Sarah, seeing a flicker of strength and warmth reflected in their eyes. There it was again, that surge of hope that maybe just maybe this could lead to something beyond the pain. But as he opened his mouth to speak, a new fear gripped him. What if the truth was too much? Would they still look at him the same way when he revealed the deepest corners of his soul? With pounding heart and trembling hands, Jake was about to dive into the darkness that haunted him. Was he ready to uncover his true self? And just as he began to share the words that had trapped him in silence for too long, the door swung open, revealing an unexpected interruption. Who could possibly be here now? The door creaked, drawing everyone's gaze. A figure stepped inside, wielding the kind of silence that commanded attention. It was the last person Jake had expected to see: his mother, Ellen. Her eyes flickered with vulnerability, a mix of anxiety and resolve coloring her features. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said, voice barely above a whisper. For a moment, time suspended in the room, each person digesting her presence as Jake's heart raced. "Mom?" he finally managed to say, stepping away from those who had become like family over the course of the evening. Confusion danced within him. Why had she come now, when everything felt so raw? Ellen squared her shoulders as if bracing against the weight of uncharted words. "I know you all have been sharing your stories and I need to share mine too," she said, glancing around the room. "I've been watching from the sidelines for so long, and I realize now that I can't hide anymore." A wave of emotion washed over Jake. Uncertainty blended with a spark of hope. Perhaps this was part of the conversation they needed to have, the missing pieces falling into place. Ellen continued, her voice growing steadier with each word. "After your father passed, I withdrew. I didn't know how to support you, and I felt alone too. I thought it was easier to pretend everything was fine, to keep quiet and hope you'd manage without me," she confessed, tears glistening in her eyes. The crowd shifted, murmurs of understanding filling the spaces between her words. Jake had always wondered why his mother seemed distant after their father's passing. Now, he realized that her silence had echoed his own. "I didn't want to burden you with my grief," she pressed on. "But in trying to protect you, I only created a larger chasm between us. I've been angry, too angry at life, angry at myself for not being there for you and Dan. It broke me," she said, voice cracking under the weight of her admission. Each heartbeat echoed in Jake's ears as he witnessed the unfolding truth. The cracks between their hearts wove tighter, binding their shared pain. "Mom, I had no idea. I thought you were just angry at us," Jake whispered, seeking to understand, longing for connection. "I was lost," she confessed, reaching out toward him. "I thought if I stayed quiet, I could save you from my grief. What I didn't realize was that it only drove us further apart. I regret so much, and I want to do better, to be better." The rawness of her confession struck a chord within everyone in the room. Each face displayed recognition of their own pain mirrored in her vulnerability. "I want to fight for us all, starting here tonight," Ellen proclaimed, searching the room for their acceptance. "I believe we can do it together," Ben chimed in, "but it starts with being honest." Jake felt as if a dam had broken inside him. Inspired by his mother's courage, his own emotions surged forth. "Mom, I didn't just lose Dad, I lost you too. I lost the connection of our family. We were all hurting together but alone." Ellen stepped closer, her vulnerable gaze drawing strength from her son's words. "Then let us rebuild that bond. One step at a time, shall we?" The warmth in the room shifted further, wrapping around them like a shared embrace. Stepping toward her, Jake took her hands, squeezing them tightly. "Together," he echoed softly. Dan, who had remained quiet, watched the exchange, his own resolve swelling. "If we're doing this, then we confront everything together. So I guess it's time I shared too," he said, his voice steady. "I've carried so much resentment for not being enough, feeling overshadowed by Jake. But I realized something in the last few weeks. Instead of focusing on what separated us, I've got to acknowledge what makes us family." Jake felt a flicker of hope rising within. Maybe this was the turning point, a new chapter where wounds could transform into scars, lessons from forgiveness and truth. "I'm here too," Sarah offered, her eyes darting nervously but sparkling with determination. "I want this community to thrive, to heal. Count me in." "I'll share as well," Ben said, nodding. We're all in this together." One by one, more voices joined in, each bringing their own truths. Little by little, they started to lift the burdens they had kept hoarded inside, sharing their stories of hurt, anger, and ultimately, hope. As the warmth of acceptance enveloped them, the darkness that had lingered so long began to dissipate. Every story brought them closer together. The room swelled with an extraordinary energy, a palpable sense of solidarity in discovery. Jake could feel it. His heart raced, not from fear but from exhilaration at the collective healing unfolding. In that moment, he understood something monumental. Change, while terrifying, was also empowering. Their shared journeys, filled with scars, would become the bedrock of their rebirth, an opportunity to redefine what family meant, to create a stronger Maplewood united in love and understanding. The cries of vulnerability echoed long into the night, and Jake knew, deep within, they were moving forward. That transformation was more than possible, it was inevitable. As the gathering began to wind down, Jake turned towards Dan, a brotherly smile breaking through the last remnants of doubt. "So, what's our next step?" Dan chuckled softly. "More stories? Or maybe we start with a barbecue to celebrate what we've accomplished." Laughter erupted, lightening the air, pushing the night's heaviness away. "Yes. A barbecue!" Jake exclaimed, excitement rising. "Let us pack the hall with laughter and strength." Together, with renewed hope, they began to lay the foundation for this vision. This was their moment, and they would seize it. As the group stood up to help clean and prepare for the next step together, Jake felt it, the pulse of a community rising, redefining the heart of Maplewood one story at a time. Now, more than ever, the journey had only just begun. Don't wait any longer. You need to subscribe now and be part of this incredible transformation story. Hit that like button to feed the algorithm and let everyone know this is a moment worth celebrating. Comment below your thoughts and feelings on this powerful ending. Your voice matters. And if you feel moved, share this video immediately with at least 5 friends who need to see this profound change. Join us in spreading this message of hope and healing.